Hello and welcome to the Federal. I'm Srinivasan. In the ongoing election campaign in Uttar Pradesh and other states, the political parties have hardly anything to say about the welfare of Muslim community. While the BJP is aggressively pursuing its Hindutva card, the so-called secular parties seem to be almost ignoring the issue. Since independence, the Muslim question in India is being viewed through different prisms, the majority-minority equation, the communal-secular equation, among others. The right of center have been describing the community as appeased. Journalist Saeed Naqvi, in his book, Being the Other, the Indian Muslim in India, narrates how there is systemic othering of Muslims taking place since independence. The dictionary meaning of othering is a process where someone or something is perceived or portrayed fundamentally different or alien. In political and practical terms, one can only imagine the impact of the process could have on those at the receiving end. Recently in Uttar Pradesh, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath sparked a controversy declaring that it will be an 80% versus 20% Uttar Pradesh polls and BJP will retain power. He further elaborated his statement saying that while the 80% supporters will be on one side, 20% will be on the other. I think 80% will move forward with a positive energy, whereas 20% who have always opposed will oppose further, he said, and I quote. The Samajwadi Party, or SP, immediately pointed out that it was a clear-cut communal statement. It wasn't lost on anyone that UP has 19.8% Muslim population. At the national level, since last few years, the response of principal opposition party, the Congress, to various other developments have been either muted or even absent. In this webinar, comprising panelists from Muslim intelligentsia, we will attempt to find out what it means for India and its possible consequences. I have with me Anas Tanveer, advocate Supreme Court and founder of Indian Civil Liberties Union. Tanveer has been crisscrossing the country, organizing workshops and meetings to raise awareness about Citizenship Amendment Bill, particularly among the Muslims and poorer sections of the society. I have with me Professor Khalid Anis Ansari. He's Associate Professor of Sociology in the School of Arts and Sciences at Azim Premji University. He's been passionately articulating Pasmanda movement, a movement of subordinate caste Muslims in India. I'm joined by Zafar Bakht, a civil society activist. He's a member of Pakistan-India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy and Indian Muslims for Secular Democracy, or IMSD. He's joining us from Allahabad. Finally, I have with me Dr. Mohammad Javed, Member of Parliament representing the Congress Party from Kishanganj Lok Sabha constituency, a medical doctor. He is a solo MP for Congress in Bihar. The House rules are simple. Each guest is expected to speak for about 4 to 5 minutes, after which we break into a discussion. If time permits, we'll take questions in the final segment of the webinar lasting 15 to 20 minutes in the last segment. So I would start with Anas Tanveer. As an advocate, you have been taking up various contentious cases from habeas corpus, petition Kashmir to NRC or National Register of Citizens for Assam cases. What's been your experience? What's your view on this?
See, going by the topic, the otherization of Muslims, especially in political sphere, the otherization is not, my experience that has been that the otherization is not just limited in the political sphere. The injustice today, if you take the data, the highest number of any minority or any religious bloc in prison as Muslims. There has been a systematic discrimination. The state has for long viewed them as a criminal, as someone who can do something wrong, and someone who needs to be contained. This escalates when they see an opinionated Muslim, or they see a Muslim who is coherent enough to share his opinion and raise his voice and speak on behalf of other Muslims. Then the radar gets alerted. It is very sensitive to this, and these activists, journalists, lawyers, they are put behind bars, or they are even, for in like take the case of Shahid Azmi, they are even eliminated. So this is a reality. But sticking to the topic, I remember somewhere around 2019, the Congress Party President, Madam Sonia Gandhi, she said we lose because we are seen as a Muslim party.
Right.
This admission in itself is indicates towards otherization of Muslims in politics. There was at that time, I remember around 2019, there was this rat race to show which politician is more Hindu. And by doing this, by falling into this trap, the secular parties fell into the Hindu-Muslim binary that has led to our otherization. This binary, they also fell into the trap of what Mr. Advani, the tag that Mr. Advani gave them as a pseudo-secularist parties. Because once you start showing that no, wait, don't call us Muslims. We are also Hindus. We are as Hindus as it gets. We are more Hindu than the others. Then you are falling in that trap, because again, there is a original product that has taken up the name of Hindu, that has been representing the Hindu religion in politics. Now, by doing this, they also accepted, which is very rather unfortunate, they accepted that a large section of the Hindu society does get radicalized by the mere existence or survival or assertion of Muslims. I'm not ready to believe this, that a large section of Hindus do get radicalized by a mere existence. Then, this was not limited to political parties to begin with. If you remember, around the time of 2018 or 2019 only, Mr. Ramachandra Guha, he wrote an editorial saying that Muslims should shun their religious identity, or rather should take a step back from politics and let Hindus defeat Hindutva in a way. Now, why should I be asked to step down? Why should I be asked to step back? I'm as much a contributor in this nation. I have as much a right on this nation as my Hindu brother. So why should I step back? And this shows there was a complete debate. I think even Mr. Harsh Mandar indicated towards this. And this goes on to show that even the civil society thinks that otherization of Muslim perhaps is the solution, is the reason for defeating, maybe a factor or will help in defeating BJP. But defeating BJP is not our mantle. We are not supposed to. We are like in UP, we are 19.8%. How do we defeat BJP? Why should the mantle be on us? When the election is fought on development, on equal rights, for the farmers' right, for the right of the last, the lost, and the least, then the democracy gets strengthened. Dr. Javed is here. The Congress party was castigated. Today, Samajwadi Party is being castigated as parties that indulge in minority appeasement. What is minority appeasement? In the name of minority appeasement, we were given Hajj subsidy, something that we never asked for, something that never helped us. You open competitive pricing in airlines for Hajj, the problem is gone. It was only to help Air India at that time. So and then there was always this kalank rather of being a Muslim vote bank, of there being an existence of a Muslim vote bank that votes towards certain parties or towards their own co-religionist. I say that was not a kalank, that is a necessity. A democracy remains a democracy and does not convert into a mobocracy or majoritarian democracy for that matter, only because of two factors. One, the courts. The courts being the custodian of the constitution, they protect the constitution and the rights enshrined therein. And the second is the power or the capability of minorities to organize themselves into pressure groups, or to be a voice in the system, or to be a voice in the society. If you turn it into something bad, then they can't assert that. They are, I mean, I was campaigning for a certain politician in 2019 election due to my personal equations with him. And I ventured around in the Muslim areas of that constituency. And in the majority Muslim ghettos or the villages that has majority Muslims, Muslims said that we will vote, we don't vote like this, we will vote as per, I mean, we'll go the direction the Yadavs take. So, I mean, this vote bank becoming a stigma has developed so deep in them that they are not ready to heed to their voice. They're not ready to fight for their rights, but will rather go where, say, an ally caste is going. So this is where the problem lies. The otherization becomes complete. Now today we see a certain assertion. For example, Dr. Javed is here. Dr. Javed is the sole MP from Congress party in Bihar.
Yeah.
He is not ashamed. He has fought for bully deals that happened. He fought against Sully deal that happened. He is fighting solely. Every day I see there is a tweet from his handle that he is standing outside in parliament holding a placard for funds for AMU. These things like fund for AMU will help Muslim community. So he is asserting, but at a larger level, this is an individual MP doing it. We talk about Congress party slogan in UP, "मैं लड़की हूँ, लड़ सकती हूँ." But as we speak, there are girls struggling in Udupi to wear hijab and go to school, to go to college. They are not being allowed, and which is against the rule of that college, which is against the law. Hijab is allowed in their rules, and yet there is a silence from the top leadership. वो लड़की हैं, वो लड़ रही हैं, but you are not voicing your you are not raising your voice for them. This is the otherization of Muslim, because I understand this will you think that it will affect Muslim UP elections, but once you stop paying any heed to this binary, like for example, we saw visuals of Muslim Jat Bhaichara in Western UP around the time of farmers' protest. Those visuals were really happy visuals. People started sharing them. Even those who once shared BJP propaganda were sharing them. Because at some point, once the politicians lose this fear, people will come together, because hate does not thrive for a long time. People get fed up of it. And this is a lesson that the secular parties will have to learn. That you will have to be assertive, that you are for everyone and including Muslims. You cannot be ashamed in taking the Muslim name. I mean, back then you were ready to wear kifaya for iftar parties. Very unnecessary if you ask me. But you were ready to do that. What happened now? You are not even ready to say the word Muslim. So this has brought a complete circle to otherization and throwing out the Muslims. And when 18% is thrown out, when 20% is thrown out of the political equation, it will never lead to anything good. It will only weaken the democracy. Thank you. That is my time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for making these opening remarks. I'll come to now Zafar Sahab. No, how would you see this sitting in Allahabad, and which is a part of a hotbed of politics right now?
So, as I look at it, the othering of the Muslims is a reality. I mean, there is no doubt about it. It has been, projected as a, as a part of a campaign by the communal forces to create the other, but that may not be the entire reality. I mean, one has to look at the complete picture. So when we look at the complete picture, because see, I'll just give you a little, of my own background. I've been working with Muslim issues for the last almost 25 years now, and holding seminars and discussions and a lot of intellectual activity around Muslim problems. It all started way back, when I read an article by Professor Javed Alam, who was at that time the chairperson of Indian Council for Social Science Research. And the article, which was published in the Economic and Political Weekly, was on the contemporary situation of Muslims in India. And it was a very interesting article. And soon after having read that article, I happened to meet Professor Javed Alam when he was visiting Allahabad for a lecture, and we became great friends. And subsequently, many times he came and he stayed with me also. He wrote a very interesting book called Who Wants Democracy? And this was the time when the politics of Hindutva was taking over the cow belt. This book was timed around that time. So what Professor Javed Alam argues in this book is that the Divija castes started to lose. I mean, the Divija castes always were with the Congress. The Congress party always had an upper caste elite which sort of controlled the party. And with the rise of the Mandal politics in UP and in the cow belt, especially UP and Bihar, and the rise of the Mandal parties, the position of the Congress party got displaced. And, these people whom the elite saw as, rough and, below their standards, the OBCs and the Dalits, they started assuming power in this region. And that was a time when the people who were with the Congress and who sort of realized, I mean, the upper caste elite, they realized that now in order to be able to hold on to power, the only way forward is to take a right-wing turn. And hence the politics of Kamandal. I mean, Mandal politics and Kamandal politics, are standing opposed to each other even today. This is the reality, which, as I see it. And why people voted for the Mandal parties was because, a poor Dalit girl who mops the floor in your house, when she sees Mayawati, who belongs to her same caste, sitting on the chair of the chief minister, she feels recognized. And a vote for recognition is always a vote for equality. And it is a natural human impulse that we seek equality in life. So that is what propelled Mandal and Mandal politics in North India. And also the poor Muslim, the weaver, the craftsman, the locksmith, he used to live with these people. He would be living in the same hamlet in similar living conditions as the poor Yadav or the poor Dhobi. So they realized that these are their brethren, and it was their party. So it turned out to be an alliance. And the Muslims started voting for the Mandal parties, and the Mandal parties were propelled to power. They gave political power to that class of the Muslims, which was not the elite. In the Congress, structure, mostly the elite found a share in the power. So this was a new class of Muslims also, which was assuming power, which was for the first time getting recognized, and therefore this alliance kind of consolidated. But very soon, the elite which was losing power, the upper caste, the Divija caste, as Professor Javed Alam points out, they realized that now their only option is to go in for communal polarization. Hence, Advani ji's Rath Yatra and the subsequent events around Babri Masjid and all. And here, as things proceeded further with the Mandal politics, subsequent governments, they also became they were power hungry. There was corruption involved. They also somewhere started losing the social motive, which had, made them become what they had become. I mean, the kind of power they got was because of an idealism which was propagated by people like Kanshi Ram and Lohia ji and socialist ideals and all these talks. So that was there. I mean, some people found a share in the power. I mean, people who had never ever before found share in power, they found share in power. But at the same time, the top leadership started appearing as very corrupt, and most of the media, that was controlled by the upper caste, by the corporates. And here, there's another aspect of it. Whereas these parties were, gaining recognition because of the democratization of Indian politics, because there was fair voting, there was, opportunity for all voices to be heard. There was more or less a free and fair election. And that is what was bringing mandal politics into the fore. The corporates realized that this kind of democratization is not very good for them. And many of the corporates, they started to back the vicious communal politics. It is an enormous investment by the corporates, which has spurred the growth of communal politics in India. And that fueling of communal politics through the media, through other things. I mean, othering of Muslims is a part and parcel of a politics to gain control over complete natural resources and the labor forces of this country, to maximize profits for the corporates, and do it with an authoritarian iron hand. Do it in a manner in which no constitutional authority can intervene. So undermining of democracy becomes crucial to the politics of fascism, which is, in the words of Masluni, a government of the corporates. A government of the corporates is what was taking formation, and the facade that it presented was a communal facade, a Hindutva facade, and othering is a part and parcel of that politics. That is one part of my submission. The other part of my submission is that we live in this country which has a historical background, and there is a fabric which is called the Ganga Jamni fabric, where Hindus and Muslims have peacefully coexisted for hundreds of years over here, and they have trade relationship, they have all kinds of relationships going on, all kinds of bonhomie going on, and there are composite traditions which bind them together. So it is not, an easy task for anyone to completely, separate the two. I mean, we live in a capitalist system. So, the Gujarat Danga, when it happened, the Gujarat riots, there was a effort to kind of boycott the Muslims from various, giving them employment and, but they were the skilled artisans. They worked in the factories of the people who were making money. So after some point, they realized that they are losing money if they don't take the Muslim workers back. So they were bound to take them back. So in a capitalist system, anyone who contributes to the capitalist system is a part and parcel of the system, and he cannot be completely alienated. Can be, but right now that is not the situation as I see it. And 30 to 40% people may have voted for BJP. 40% with respect to states and 30% with respect to the country. But then that leaves us with a 70% who have not voted for the BJP, and who, the bulk of them are Hindus. And we have a lot of Hindu friends. There are, other than the leftists and socialists, we have many Hindu friends who are liberal, who don't look at, who don't stand with Hindutva politics. In fact, some of them, even if they do stand with the Hindutva politics by virtue of being upper caste Hindus, because they see their bread and butter that side. But when you meet them socially, you feel that, there is no love lost between you two. And that is because, essentially, there is also a culture of humanism. So how I look at it is that this is not really a clash. The Francis Fukuyama, thesis is that there is a civilizational clash in the world, that there are different kinds of civilizations, and similar ideology is being propagated by, ideas are being propagated by the RSS, that, Muslims and Hindus are two different kinds of people. Civilizationally, they are different. Culturally, they are different. But I don't believe that is true, because I feel that culturally, Indian Muslim and Indian Hindus are the same, because we sing the same songs, we listen to the same stories. Every Muslim child grows up listening to the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata. and every Hindu child grows up listening to, seeing Muharram, seeing all kinds of Muslim festivals, celebrating Eid with his Muslim friends. So there is a great bonhomie between that communities, and these bonds which have been very carefully formulated by our Sufis and the Bhakti Sants, the culture of love that exists in this country. It's still, there is the bulk of the population of the country. I don't see there is much of a difference. It is not a clash of civilizations. It is a clash of fundamentalisms. So whereas the ruling dispensation may find in its interest, I mean, the yogis and the modis may find in its interest to create that polarization, to create that otherness, and many may, many of their bhakts and followers may sort of become a part of that vicious campaign. But then there are the bulk, still the majority of the Hindus haven't gone that way. Right. And politically, the only hope that I see is in the revival of liberal politics in the country, revival of Congress party in the country. As Anas just said that hijab, on the hijab issue, nobody commented. Today itself, I was seeing that Rahul Gandhi has commented on it, and he has said that Saraswati sees everyone equally, and someone wearing a hijab or someone not wearing a hijab, Goddess Saraswati will treat them equally. And if this whole myth of Hindutva and all these things are being propelled, so even for the liberal parties, it is important to have tactics. I mean, you don't lose your liberal character by following certain tactics. I mean, you don't play into the hands of people who are trying to create the polarization. In order to contest them, you have to use certain techniques. Because once these people are in power, they are finishing off all the institutions.
Like Zafar Sahab, I'll come back to you. I think we'll take this as the opening remarks. Let's hear others.
Right.
So more or less, I got your. Yeah, I got your points down. We'll come back to your issue. Certainly, let's hear. Professor Ansari, what's your take?
Sure.
Before we go back.
Yeah. I will digress a bit.
Yes.
So far, I mean, the discussion has been on religious othering, the Hindu-Muslim binary. So I would like to complicate the category of the other into external others and internal others. So while historically, it is the religious binary, the religious other that has been privileged, but all these religious communities, whether Hindus and Muslims, they are diverse, they are not monolithic, and there are internal others. And I think in the treatment of the Muslim question or the religious identity, it is the question of the internal other that now needs to be foregrounded. And when I use the term internal other, I refer to the lower caste, the Bahujans, women, regional diversities within these religious traditions. Second, we have to also desist from using religious identity as a monolithic category. It is not about invisibilization of Islam or invisibilization of Muslim category. But I think it is now very important that we start hyphenating the Muslim identity. So when we talk about Muslims, we should talk about Pasmanda Muslims, Shudra Muslims, Ati Shudra Muslims, Malayali Muslims, Kashmiri Muslims, Muslim women, and so on and so forth. So with those opening remarks, I want to trace this construction of the Hindu-Muslim binary to the colonial knowledge project, especially in the late 19th century, how the South Asian society was reconfigured from a religious lens, particularly by the instruments such as the census, the gazetteers, the maps, and the museums, and so on and so forth. And the colonial knowledge project, like any knowledge project, was not innocuous, but an instrument of power. And it was during that time when these binaries, which we face now, the religious binary, it actually got entrenched. And the pre-colonial situation of fuzzy communities, where religion was not the overarching category, religion was not the dominant category, it became systematized, it became bounded, and religion was launched as the overarching category to understand South Asia. And most other social diversities, whether class, caste, gender, or sectarian affiliations, interpretative communities, they were all subsumed within the religious category. And they became internal moments of religion. And this, I think, is a landmark. It is a very important shift in understanding South Asian society. And I see this as a conceptual violence, a kind of a violence of categories. And in this conceptual violence, where religion was launched as the overarching category to understand South Asia and to manage South Asia, the pan-religion high caste elites also played the role of the native interlocutors. And this is very important, that in this binary, in this religious Hindu-Muslim binary, the high caste native elite interlocutors across religions. So in Hindus, the Savarnas, and in Muslims, the Ashrafs, the Sayyid, Sheikhs, Mughals, and Pathans, and so on and so forth. They played a key role. They played a key role in sedimenting this Hindu-Muslim binary. And there are different moments in the colonial period. I won't go into the details. 1906, the formation of the Muslim League. 1909, separate electorate, Maudley Minto reforms. Then 1919, Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. And that is when numbers became important, around 1919, because of the semi-parliamentary politics. Numbers became important because of the inauguration of democracy in India. Even though there was a restricted electorate, there was no universal adult franchise, and very few people were allowed to vote. But still, numbers became important. And the high caste sections in all religious communities, they were anxious because they were actually a minority. The high caste sections were actually a minority in their respective religious populations. And that is why it made sense for them to invisibilize their position of power, to invisibilize their demographic deficit under the pale of religious identity.
Right. I take this your remark. I think since you're going into a historical thing, I think we largely understood what you're trying to say. And this is a fresh perspective you're giving, that there is a external others and there is an internal others, and we need to see that carefully. Okay, we'll come back to that. Finally, I would request Dr. Javed Saab, what would be your remarks? You heard all of them, and you're a political practitioner, So what they all taught you see in real life.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, and adab to Anas Saab, Zafar Saab, or Khalid Saab. It was really interesting to hear my friends put up their views, and I agree with most of it. And there is no doubt that the situation is not so pleasant in India. But I also believe this is a very phasic change that has happened to India, and the people behind this change, it took them almost a century to get to this stage. But I'm sure the people of India, as my friends have suggested and said earlier, that we have lived together, shared happiness and sorrows for more than 1,000 years. We'll get back to our previous routine very soon. And the people who are in power, or rather dominating politics, is doing it in a very very aggressive way, and also very scientific way to divide people. And they are using all sorts of agencies for it, be it the print or the print media, or the television, or the social network, and many others. And most of it is also happening because these people are spreading uh, false informations. They are trying to alter history.
Okay.
Bring, yeah.
Yeah,
You
please
want
go on.
to come in?
No. I think your voice was slightly lost. Please continue. Yeah.
Okay. So they have been trying their best, but I believe people do understand that political party is supposed to make lives easier for the society rather than divide the people, which leads to nothing but mm, not only damaging the social fabric but also hurts economically. So people do realize, and I believe very soon the Indians will make known their decisions, and I see that happening in the next couple of months, inshallah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think now we'll open the discussion. All of you have made your points. I would actually start with Javed Sab yourself. You see, your whole formulation was very positive. In fact, all the speakers spoke very positively. They seem to see a very, you almost seem to suggest that the politics has returned to its normal course. Whereas you yourself said that, this attempt which is being made it took 100 years. So there has been a persistent work, support of media, technology, whole lot of other things are happening. Where do you get this confidence to say as if it's politics as normal? Do you think the secular forces or so-called secular forces, those who don't want this, are they even organized to such an extent? Are we listening? I mean, are we hearing those voices? Because what you seem to be saying right now is seems pretty positive. Sounds nice, but is it real?
I believe so. I believe so. But you see, I have stopped watching news for a very long time now. But if you watch news, whenever the last that I would watch TV and the news, it's a 24/7 thing. And most of the channels, they do not give the right picture. And most of them are trying to justify whatever the ruling party decides. And that confuses the masses. And the masses then realize that what the ground realities are is totally different. Their concerns, their issues are not talked about. So the people are quite disillusioned with the present dispensation, and they have now started discussing their problems, because their problems have really multiplied quite a bit, and most of the Indians are not in a very pleasant situation financially. No jobs, and the facilities that the government should provide is not there. The inflation and the cost of basic things have multiplied so much. So all these are things that a normal household or a society do realize, and they feel that the government should have done better, and they are, rather than thinking about improving the situations of the people, they try and divert by talking about other things which are not so important to the masses.
Right. You see, you seem to suggest that economic distress, unemployment, job loss, all those things are kind of falling into place. and then over a period of time, people will see. But if you look at your own party, I mean, here again, let me make it clear that you are a representative of the party. Doesn't mean that you are responsible for whatever the Congress party does. But the issue here is, when it comes to making a outreach to Dalits, Congress party speaks out very quickly. Even with the left parties, once in a while they do speak. But when it comes to the Muslim question, they're very cautious. The solidarity with this community is rather muted or absent. I can understand, it could be tactical during maybe an election time, maybe campaign time, but this is a trend which we're seeing for the last few years.
But Mr. Srinivasan, I don't really think that is correct. Regarding any committee, any section which are not getting the due or getting are targeted, the Congress has always spoken against them. And Mr. Anas said, mentioned in his opening remarks about me raising the matter of Sully deals and other things. It was signed by almost 50 odd parliamentarians, mostly from my party, 56 MPs. So It was not just me. I mean, most of them were my party colleagues. And I, on their behalf, I went and met the Home Minister and requested that necessary action should be taken. So it's not just that, well, many things don't come in the media. That is one of the reasons that people are not aware of. But even in UP, if you look at the elections which is happening now, we have given appropriate representations to all communities, including the minority you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Now I'll come to Anas. I would like to ask a question here. You've been practically dealing with several cases. You went to Assam to look at NRC cases. You took up a case of habeas corpus in Kashmir. You have seen the kind of things which are happening at the ground level. Are you so sanguine as others are here in the panel? Other panelists seem to be, kind of talking that this will go away. It's just a phase.
No, I'm not. Clearly, I'm not. And see, it won't just go away. It won't just vanish. As Dr. Javed said, it has taken them 100 years to bring us to this point. There has been a lot of effort from their side, an effort towards hate, an effort towards otherization, but an effort in any case. And it won't just go away. Like, for example, how will it go away? It will go away by the new generational assertion of identity by the Muslims. And not just the common Muslim, not just we on social media or in law, but by the politicians. And acceptance of that identity by other politicians, those who call them secular. Understand that our constitution, the secularism in our constitution is different from what is in the West or in America, where they don't give any regard to any religion. Ours is of mutual respect, equal respect to all religion. So that respect, and why is that? Because historically that respect has been there have been distress, there have been disturbances, but historically that mutual respect has been entwined with our DNA. It is not very separate. It is something we really like. But once the idea of getting power comes into mind, or once the idea of dominating others, or sometimes against personal injustices, if you get a chance to bring down the other, you do not hesitate. At least initially, no one hesitates in opting for that course rather than what is in our core. We start acting upon it. I still believe that most of the hate that comes from the right wing and that has precipitated in among a large section of the majority society, that hate is pretentious. That is my belief. but it will not just go away by its own. There has to be an acceptance. There has to be a overt display of brotherhood. Like, for example, we need to go back in the era where movies like Amar Akbar Anthony and Kuli, that 786, I don't remember what movie
Right.
that was.
Hmm.
Like, we need to go into the romanticized era, perhaps, to
But you
bring
know,
a sense of normalcy.
I'm say, look, even in the movies, you are saying seeing positive aspects, but movies are also responsible for stereotyping Muslims in many ways,
Yeah.
and some kind of smugglers, some kind
Yes.
of anti-nationals. Those stereotyping has been happening over the years. So the
It
movies
has, it
have.
has. Matter of fact, you take up any of the last few Akshay Kumar movies, it's full of dog whistling. It is full of Islamophobia in a very, sometime in a subtle, sometime in an overt manner, and many others. You are making historical movies by distorting historical facts, and you're showing Muslims as villains, as barbarians, which is not the reality, which is far from the reality. It is not the historical truth. But you have shaped history the way it suits you, and now you are publicizing that history through Bollywood. So yes, that's why I said we need to go back to the time of romanticized era, where the Nehruvian politics was strong, where people were happy with, even if again a pretentious display of brotherhood, but there was something positive about it. Now that is lacking. And obviously there are 1,000 factors that have brought us to this point.
Okay. I would come to Professor Saab, Professor Khalid. Your core argument, I mean, if you see the core argument of Hindutva, it's attempting a certain homogeneity, basically consolidating all castes and communities. I mean, that's the thing they would like to do, to bridge the caste divide and bringing a strong Hindutva as one homogeneous thing. What we, in a way, media used to call earlier as, mandal as a kind of, it came for a while as an antidote to mandir, but then it seems so reversed. When the Rath Yatra was stopped somewhere on the border of Bihar, UP, and they have been fairly successful in UP also as a right-wing strategy. They've managed to consolidate smaller segments of backward communities with their own support base, and to win an election. So in this atmosphere, your formulation, where you see two kind of external others and internal others, and then further you're saying that the internal others need to be foregrounded. Theoretically, you're saying this, but isn't just seem to be moving just in the opposite direction?
I don't think so. If I have been a student of the Pasmanda movement, which is the lower caste Muslim movement, and if there is one thing that they have emphasized, it is the need to fight both Hindu and Muslim communalism together. So it is not about only Hindu communalism, it is also about Muslim communalism. And it is not only about the Hindu right, it is also about the Muslim right. And they are in a symbiotic relationship. They feed on each other. And the content of Hindu communalism and Muslim communalism is not only an antagonistic stance with each other, but also they are an instrument to subvert the rights of the internal others, whether in the Hindus or whether in the Muslim community. So that is one. Second, when we talk of solidarity, you cannot fight Hindutva without fighting Islamism. If one has to fight Hindutva, then one has to talk about Muslim communalism, talk about the upper caste content of Muslim communalism. And unless you do that, because let us look at historically. Historically, it has been about cultural difference. Hindu-Muslim binary has been about cultural difference. AMU, Babri, Urdu, Muslim personal law, and so on and so forth. So unless you characterize this emphasis on cultural difference and try to bring in the question of internal inequalities within these religious camps, one cannot displace the Hindutva politics or Islamist politics and so on and so forth. So that is one. And second, Congress, since everyone has been talking about Congress, Congress has been historically responsible for that. And if the Muslim category stands delegitimized today, Congress has much to contribute on that. Let me just talk about two moments. One immediately around the partition. So we all know within Muslims, the Muslim League was being challenged by the Moment Conference. The Moment Conference, led by Abdul Qayyum Ansari, was a lower caste Muslim mobilization. And they characterized the Muslim League as a party of Muslim elites, upper caste, ashrafs, the aristocratic nawabs, capitalists, and so on and so forth. Now, Moment Conference was working closely with the Congress Party before 1947. And they were taking on the Pakistan movement of Muslim League. But once partition happened, once India gained independence, whom did Congress privilege? The Congress accommodated the old Muslim leaguers within its party structure, and the lower caste Muslims that had taken on the Muslim League, they were completely marginalized within the Congress scheme of things. And in the last 50, 70 years, Congress cultivated a very microscopic Muslim elite, gave it political patronage, and that is where the charge of Muslim appeasement stems from. I would say it is not Muslim appeasement, this is Ashraf appeasement. Appeasement of the high caste Muslims, a very small microscopic section. What did the Congress do during the Uniform Civil Code? While Congress and Nehru, they were so forthcoming in talking about Hindu reform, talking about the caste question.
Stop.
Mr. Srinivasan, just let me, complete this point. Yeah. In the question of, as far as the question of the Muslim rights of Muslim women is concerned, in the Shah Bano case, the Congress completely went with the conservative sections of Indian Muslims, right? So if the Muslim community, if the Muslim identity has been delegitimized, Congress has much blame to take. I'll stop here.
No, exactly. I was going to come to this point only. You said it. So I want to ask this to Javed Saab. You see, here is a point, Dr. Saab. The Congress party is being accused of, right now it's a bit wary of associating with Muslims openly. But it's the same one which was actually pandering to the conservatives by overturning in parliament what he called as the Shah Bano case in 1986. So what about those things? How are you going to correct those issues?
We have been given chance by the people of India for a very long time. We did some amazing stuff for our country. And I'm sure we must have done a few things which were not liked by certain sections of our population. And the first, Khalid Sahab was talking about the Pashmanda Muslims. I would like to get into that because I would like to respond to that. Generally, I don't like to talk about it. My upbringing has been in a hostel wherein I didn't know whether what my religion was. सिर्फ ईद और बकरीद में पता चलता था कि हम मुसलमान हैं और
Air Force School.
Yeah. So and I have all kinds of friends. And Khalid Sahab was talking about Pashmanda. So I'm sure he knows a lot more about that section. And he should know that I also belong to that section, but I don't consider myself to belong to just one section. We are 3 MPs from Congress, Muslim MPs, and 2, I believe, we are from that economically or I don't know, socially, educationally backward community, maybe, if Khalid Saab means to refer to that section. And Anas Saab had also mentioned my participation in the past few months in the parliament requesting the center for funds for AAU. So I believe that we should not divide ourselves, and Congress, I have been in politics for a long time. Before me, my father was in politics. And since 1962, we have represented between father and son many times in the assembly and first time in the parliament. And we never felt that we were sidelined. My father was always a very important member of the Congress. I have been given important charges, important responsibilities. And I have interacted with most of the leaders. I never felt any discrimination at all. So, but apart from what Khalid Saab said, I believe we in India, since you're talking about the topic is othering the Muslims,
right.
No doubt it will take a lot of time to get rid of this evil. We might not totally get rid of this evil. We read in the papers that neo-Nazis are raising their heads in Germany again after that monstrous time that we saw what happened in Europe and especially in Germany and the area controlled by Hitler. But there are some people who have different kinds of thoughts, different kinds of ideology. So that will remain in every society, every geographical area. But I believe that majority of us Indians, we have lived together, we have shared good times together, shared sorrows together. Anything happens to us, we go to our neighbor. We don't go 5 kilometers to meet our co-religion person, you see. So I am quite hopeful that things will improve.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, I'll come to unless Dr. Ansari want to respond to this.
Yeah. So thank you, Javed Saab. I mean, it's your own personal experience and your own anecdotal evidence about the Congress party and about the state of the country. But I would just say that politics works on constituencies. Politics works on divisions. The only question is which divisions are we going to support? For example, if he says the division that they're comfortable with is 80-20, and the Bahujan parties, they say the counter-hegemonic division of 85-50, right? So one has to choose between the two. And in the Pasmanda movement, there is a slogan, Dalit Pichla Ek Saman, Hindu ho ya Musliman. So all Muslims and Hindus are the backwards and the Dalits, they're equal, whether they come from any religion. So this notion of religious solidarity, of vertical solidarity, it has to be complicated, it has to be challenged by a counter-hegemonic notion of solidarity of all lower classes, of all lower castes across religions. And unless we do that, we won't be able to really tame this beast. And when we talk about the Bahujans or the Pasmandas, they refer to 85% of the population, the farmers, the peasants, the Adivasis, the nomadic communities, the Dalits, the Shudras, the Tishudras, and so on and so forth. So in politics, we need to have a constituency. And I think if you have to take the Hindutva head on, then one has to talk about 85-15. And that is what is important. And this 85-15 should not be seen only in the context of the Hindu Bahujan, but also within the Muslim Bahujan, within the Muslim society. So this 85-15 war is not only within the Hindu body politic, but this has to be launched also within the Muslim body politic. Because even Muslims, there are hierarchies, there are dominant Ashraf classes, and then there are the marginalized sections. So this entire notion of a homogeneous Muslim community, a homogenic Muslim constituency, Muslims as the victims, as the complete pure victims, I think that has to go. Because even if you look at lynchings, if you look at pogroms, most of the affected during those lynchings in communal riots or in pogroms are the lower caste Muslims.
Maybe you want to speak about what happened to Shah Rukh Khan? I mean, maybe it's legally it's a different issue, but socially, what you saw, what panned out.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's a particular kind of a symbolic. That's a particular kind of a symbolic spin. But if you look at the most violence, the most effect, I'm not saying that the upper castes are not affected. I'm only saying that most of those who are affected, they are the subordinate Muslims, the lower caste Muslims.
Okay, unless you want to come in here. You want to come in? I have a question for Zafar Bhai, then I'll come to you then. If you...
No, please take that question.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you. You were saying that it's not a clash of civilization, but a clash of fundamentalism. And you are in the yogi land now. But is that moderate elements even coming forward? Even now, if you look at the tickets which are being given or in the assembly elections, are the moderate elements being promoted by so-called secular parties? Are they getting a chance? Why that leadership is not coming forward?
So, if you look at it like this, there's been a very interesting development in Uttar Pradesh. See, my assertion was that this is a corporate-fueled communal polarization. It is being done to take over the natural resources and control the labor forces of this country to maximize their profits. So, as a natural result of all this, because there is a thrust of corporate takeover everywhere and capital is entering all arenas, there was a huge farmers movement. And that farmer movement unleashed, again, Congress party and visuals of Rahul Gandhi on a tractor in Punjab in the farmer protest. Fighting communalism is not, just, when you go and stand with some Muslim family and say that I am with you. Fighting communalism also means fighting the forces that are propelling communal growth in this country. So, as a result of that, the worst communal polarized space in Uttar Pradesh, which was Western UP, which had literally handed over the state to them in the last elections. Over there, we are seeing a unique bonhomie between the Jats and the Muslims this time. And the riots that happened earlier, they were between these two communities. So you have to understand that when people start seeing their interest in being together, then love nurtures between them. Bonds develop between them. So this is where our politics has to lead us to our common struggles, common movements for our rights, for our resources, for our employment, for our healthcare, all these things together. Whenever we fight shoulder to shoulder together for our common issues, they will bring us together, and we will forget all that communal hatred and all that which is an artificial implant, which is being done by vested interests, to divide society.
Right, I got it. Yeah.
So this is, even in yogis, UP, what I see is that they are giving tickets very tactically. Like, for example, Allahabad example I'll give you. There was this last election, there is a city west constituency here. There are 3 MLA constituencies in the city. Now, the city west constituency was the original constituency of the muscle man Atiq Ahmed. I'm sure you might be familiar with Atiq Ahmed's name. He also became a member of parliament. I'm sure Javed Saab knows about him very well. Now, Atiq Ahmed's constituency, after he left it and he became an MP, gave it to his brother, who was also a very known mafia guy. Later on, in the last election, BJP got that seat, and against him was pitted this young firebrand girl who was the president of Allahabad University Union, also Richa Singh. And Richa Singh was the girl when, as the president of Allahabad University, he was coming to Allahabad. She stalled his visit into the university. She said, I cannot allow this communal man to enter my university. And she was given the ticket from City West, and she got a substantial number of votes. 60,000 votes she got. Now, in this election, Akhilesh Yadav denied her the ticket. He gave that ticket to a Maurya, who's a turncoat from the BJP. Now, I say that it is tactical because right now the key to the UP power is with the OBCs, because the OBCs had abetted with the BJP. That is why power slipped out of the hand, because essentially Samajwadi Party was a rainbow coalition of OBCs and MBCs. And Samajwadi Party was a rainbow coalition of Dalits and some of the BCs. So it is very tactical to make it appear that we are wanting you all to come back to us and we are giving you importance. And this is what Akhilesh Yadav has done, which has got all these Swami Prasad Mauryas and all these people left BJP saying that they are anti-Dalit, they are anti-people, they are anti-poor. All these factors they said. Statements they made. I mean, they enjoyed the power while they were there, but when they left, they said all these. They made the right noises, and that is a signal to their community, because those people are not seeing their long-term prospects with the BJP. I mean, they are telling their community that if you stay long enough with these people, they will polarize the atmosphere so much that whatever struggles and mandal and all these things we have achieved, that will go away from us. This is the message which they are trying to give. So eventually it is politics and also bonhomie which will come through common struggles that will unite people and that will finish off polarization. And of course, there is this problem of Muslim fundamentalism also, which cannot be completely ignored. And I think that is another chapter needs to be discussed.
Yeah, we'll come to that. You know, Anas actually wanted to interject. You wanted to say something, but if not, I'll ask a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Only to the point where Mr. Ansari said that majority of those who were lynched were from Paswanda. It's not true. I have worked on lynching cases, most of the cases. Junaid wasn't Paswanda from what I know. And again, there is no per se a caste indicator like in Hindus where you can tell the caste by the name. So it's very difficult to go on that. But what Mr. Ansari does not speak about, who are the perpetrators? That is the crucial question. That is the crucial question. He said Bahujan, Muslim and all, everyone together. Who are the perpetrators? Who are the perpetrators? Who are the foot soldiers in the Delhi riots? Who are the foot soldiers in the Gujarat riots? And I don't need to say, you know the answer.
So I'll come to that.
And just Srinivasan, just one more point. Those people were killed for being Muslims, for their Muslim identity. It was not they were killed because of a presumed or imaginary caste. It was because of their social standing and it was because of their Muslim identity. They were not being killed. They were being killed while they were saying that Mulle Kumaro, Katue Kumaro, not Paswanda Kumaro. Wo the Katua. These things are common to all of us.
Yeah, let's. Unfortunate, but let's not go there. See, the thing which I want to ask you is
we can go there. So. If I'm allowed to respond,
I think we'll drift on the topic.
1 minute. I will certainly allow you to respond to that. I was just saying, let's not use these words. I mean, that's all. But I understand the slightly unparliamentary. That's what I was saying. But let's.
I'm sorry for that, but unfortunately, that's the reality.
Yeah.
We need to look at it as it is.
Right. Yeah.
We cannot anymore sugarcoat it and repeat the words.
Coarsening of the language. That's right. But I want to ask you a question particularly, like Zafar was trying to say, that, it's tactical. The use of the word tactical, that it's the way the political parties organize tickets, organize candidates, it's tactical. And you saw certain tactics which played out in Delhi also. The party won seats, it came to power, but then there was a kind of a community which was agitating, the CAA. I think they turned the other side, didn't they?
Yes. There has been
this whole tactical thing, sure. Sorry.
What happened in February of 2020 was a betrayal by the Aam Aadmi Party. They are absent. They never supported CA. We never required their support, to be very honest. It was a movement of. It was an Indian movement. It was movement of public. It was movement of Muslims, and we did not require political support. Matter of fact, I must just say this, and because I have been critical of Congress, It was Priyanka Gandhi who traveled all through the UP to meet the 22 family of the 22 kids who were killed during the CA protest. So I must, mention this because it is important, because when we attack them, and I also, before moving on anything, I stand corrected, as Zafar Bak Sahab corrected me, that Rahul Gandhi has indeed spoken on that, even though he has used Hindu imagery to bring home the point. And secondly, the protest was led at the Vidhan Saudha today in Bangalore by a Muslim NLA of Congress party. So that is just to set the record straight.
Okay. I think, Ansari, Professor Ansari, you want to reply?
Yeah, two things I just want to respond to, Anas. One, yes, it's very true that the violence, the language, the rhetoric that is used is charged with religion, right? So like you use the metaphors, so I won't repeat them. That's very true. But also this notion of religious content of violence, it also has to be complicated by spatial and class dimension of vulnerability. Right? So who are the vulnerable? For example, I'll give you a few examples. So in the Muzaffarnagar violence between the Jat and Muslims, so if you look at the micro-politics of violence, the neighborhoods where the Jat Muslims live, or the Mule Jats, those neighborhoods were spared, right? And most of the violence happened on the Pasmanda Muslims, the Barbars, the Telis, who lived within the Jat villages. Also in riots, the neighborhoods that are attacked, whether in Gujarat violence, in Bhiwandi, in Bombay violence, in Moradabad, and so on and so forth, most of the violence is directed at neighborhoods which are largely poor. And there is a correlation between caste and class in India. So while much has changed, but most of the upper classes are also upper caste, and most of the lower classes are also lower caste. So yes, the rhetoric is on Hindu-Muslim binary. But once you look at the micro-politics of violence, most of those who are at the receiving end are lower caste subjugated Muslims, whether they, by virtue of living in poor neighborhoods in slums, or by virtue of other dimensions of the violence. Yeah. So that is one. Second, you said that it is difficult to identify Muslims because they don't use surnames. I think that works for Hindus also. Many Dalits now they are using upper caste surnames like Singh and so on and so forth. I know a Yadav who uses the surname Sharma. So there is a Sanskritization process and an Ashrafization process where lower caste across communities, they're using higher caste surnames. But I just released a list of UP BSP candidates, Muslim candidates, and also Samajwadi Party Muslim candidates, stating their caste composition, the caste composition of Muslim candidates in both the candidates fielded by both BSP and Samajwadi Party. And we could find out the caste of the Muslims. Every Muslim has a caste in India. Only one has to be sensitive when one does the research, when one does the survey, and it is easy to find. My counter question is, why in the list of victims, I have the list of victims of the Delhi violence. Out of 52, I think almost 99% are lower caste Muslims in the Delhi violence. In fact, in the Hindu cases of violence, there are 4 or 5.
Just one interjection. He wanted you to look at the perpetrators. I mean, his perspective.
Right. Yeah, obviously. So there is a distinction between the class position of a person and the fantasy that he or she lives. So there is Hindu communal propaganda, there is Muslim communal propaganda, there is Hindutva discourse, there is Islamist discourse, and it is very likely that the lower caste within both religions, they fall victim to it. Why only the perpetrator of this? Why not take the Babri Masjid issue? So who were the stormtroopers from the Hindu side? Mostly the co-opted lower caste, subjugated caste. So that happens both ways. So in violence, in communal violence, it is usually the lower caste across sections. They are used as foot soldiers against each other.
Okay.
So I don't have any issue on that. I don't have any issue on that.
Srinivasan, just because if I go into responding to this in detail, it will change the whole topic. It will drift from the topic. Just one thing, there is a very clear distinction between class and caste. And everywhere you have just tried to use caste. I mean, those are the class indicators. The poor died. Yes, the poor died, the poor kills, but it's the poor. It is beyond that. And when a Muslim is being killed, he's being killed for being a Muslim. That's all I will like to say and conclude with this. Thank you.
Right. So, we'll just one question, it's a direct question which has come. for Dr. Javed. The question is, people will teach communal forces a lesson is all fine, but don't secular parties have a duty and role? When secular parties refuse to aggressively counter communal narrative, don't they help othering? This is a question for you, Dr. Javed.
Mr. Srinivasan, first of all, I do not agree with Mr. Yogi when he said, "80 बनाम 20."
Yeah.
उसी लिहाज में या I also do not agree with Khalid Saab saying 15 versus 85. You see, in Congress, everybody is important. You see, and we cannot leave a section untouched or unattended and hope to make India great. India can only, or we can only grow if we take everybody with us. So I do not agree with the 80-20, nor do I agree with the 15-85, number one. And your question, sir?
My question was, the question which was asked was, when secular parties refuse to aggressively counter communal narrative, don't they help othering?
We have been very aggressive. We have been very aggressive. You must have seen Rahulji's speeches from time to time. And not only Rahulji, the other leaders, Congress leaders, and apart from Congress, the other party leaders also have been very vocal about the communal tensions being created for political gain, which was very aptly put by Mr. Zafar Saab. Yeah. Zafar Saab. So it is only for political gains, and they are using the tactics of dividing the people, and they are using other factors to mobilize their core vote bank by making a section of the society or the voters as enemies of the bigger numbers. So this is all politics, and this is all for self-gain, nothing else. And I believe very soon the things will improve, but it will totally not go away, as nothing goes away forever. It comes up and subsides for a bit, and then it again comes up. So ये चलता रहेगा, and we have been very vocal against every evil in the society that has been happening in the past few years.
Okay. Thank you very much. With just 2 minutes left, if you want, we can conclude. I'll take this as your final concluding point, Dr. Javed. Ansari, Professor Ansari, you want to say something as a concluding in just wrap up?
Just one thing. I mean, I would say that 80-20 is not actually contiguous with 85-15. So 80-20 means violence against the 20%. In the context of 85-15, it is not about violence against the 15. The understanding is that the 15% are the dominant sections, and the 85% have to be mobilized, who are the disenfranchised, who are the oppressed, to claim their, to put their justice claims, to seek representation, and so on and so forth. So I think these two kinds of binaries, these two kinds of mobilizations are conceptually very different.
Right. Got it. Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Anas, your concluding point.
My concluding point is just simply this, that I do believe that there is an otherization. There are clear indicators for that. And it has reflected in the vote distribution. It has just reflected in the seat distribution, ticket distribution. And that needs to be countered, that this is an aggressive cancer that has to be countered with aggressive medicines. And I would rather go back to the time of the, as Dr. Zafar Baksh Saab said, he's from Allahabad, I'm from Banaras, and I understand what he said when he went to the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. I would like to go back to the time of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, but I should not be expected to not assert for my rights. I should not be expected to be servile. I should not be expected, my secularism should not be at the cost of following my religion. That is my concluding remark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Zafar, you want to say something as a concluding remark?
Nothing substantial. I think I agree with mostly what Javed Saab has said. And I believe that the future of India is as bleak and or bright as the future of the Congress party, which I consider to be at the helm of fighting the fascist communal forces here. And I see them creating the liberal space for all the left and the progressives to follow and enter at a later stage.
Okay,
but
thank you very much.
That's
sure. Just tell me. Okay. I think it's a good point to conclude on a very positive note, what you said. I really thank all my panelists. I thank Dr. Javed to give a perspective. Professor Ansari for, completely giving a different this thing to the whole issue. Mrs. Zafar Bakt and Anas Tanveer. What Anas said is important. One last point where I would like to certainly say that representation is important. If you look at the number of tickets which are given, even in the UP elections, actually only one candidate has been given, and that has been given through an allied party. And it is important that, if you remember Kanchi Ram's slogan also, "Jiski jitni hissedari, uski utni bhagidari." Democracy is all about also having a power in the share. So that's also an important point. Thank you, all of you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.